Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakahakodash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word and truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 20. Therefore, hear the counsel of Yahweh that he had taken against Edom. And the biblical Edomites are known as the so-called white people today. These Caucasians, these so-called Europeans, Americans, Russians, South Afrikaners, Australians, British, etc., etc., and his purposes that he hath purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. And that least of the flock that's going to draw them out is referring to these so-called Israelis, who are not the true people of the book. They're also Edomites of the tribe of Amalek. And for the rest of this video, I'm going to be referring to them as the 1948ers. And they will be the ones that's going to draw out these other nations down into the Middle East for the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon, the true World War III. They're going to do something to provoke Iran to attack them or create some false flag situation to blame it on Iran, which is going to trigger them to go to war against Iran, and it's going to draw out the United States of America and these other European NATO nations in on the side of the 1948ers, and on the side of Iran, it's going to draw in nations like Russia and China. And in this video, I'll be profiling a clip from Wyon's YouTube channel titled War Between Wars, Tensions Between Iran and the 1948ers Intensifies, just to show that with each passing day, we're getting closer and closer to the least of the flock, drawing all these nations down into the Middle East for that battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat.
Now, while the world's attention is rightly focused on the war in Ukraine, there are a number of other...
And the war in Ukraine is the wars and the rumors of wars in Matthew chapter 24. You've got a lot of people saying that this war in Ukraine is what's going to kick off World War III, but it's just the beginning of sorrows. It's fulfilling certain prophecies that's going to further play into the bigger World War III. But this war in the Middle East, that battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, is going to be the true World War III. And that's mainly going to happen after the Charagma in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18 is mandatorily implemented. The MARKOFTHEBEAST, which is the RFID/NFC MICROCHIPIMPLANT. And if you've been paying attention to the news, hey, we're getting closer and closer to the unveiling and mandatory implementation of the Charagma. You're having all these different governments across the planet talking about introducing CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, and that Charagma is going to be the middleman between the average person doing business with these central banks and using the Charagma to deal in society, to buy and sell, get a job, travel abroad, etc., etc. And the Cragamuffin 19, which has been taking place over the past couple of years, has set up a lot of the infrastructure to transition over to this digital cashless society.
Conflicts still raging across the world. One of these is the war between wars, as it's known, between Iran and Israel. And it's been an eventful 48 hours. Our correspondent, Jody Cohen, brings you this report. Take a look.
"48 hours is a long time in geopolitics. On Sunday, Iran targeted 12 missiles against what it called Israeli spy centers in Iraq. This has been disputed by Iraq. On Monday, Iranian media reported that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps intelligence unit said that they had arrested an Israeli Mossad team aiming to sabotage the Fordow centrifuge site. This was followed by a cyber attack late Monday against Israeli government websites, which lasted just over 1 hour. Cyber attacks also took place against Israel's diamond exchange over the weekend and are thought by Israel to have been carried out by Iranian groups. And now, on Tuesday, Iran has accused Israel of destroying hundreds of Iranian drones in a strike last month. All this is set against a backdrop of negotiations over the revived Iran nuclear deal, which have broken down in the wake of new demands made by Russia. And in the latest, Tehran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian is meeting with Russian dignitaries on Tuesday, where the nuclear deal is likely to be on the agenda.
Negotiations over the Iran nuclear deal have been going on for 10 long months. And just as the revived deal was expected to be announced, Moscow introduced new demands, guaranteeing that sanctions against Russia would not damage its trade with Iran. Meanwhile, Israel and the UAE, who are concerned about the deal's ability to prevent Iran achieving nuclear breakout, are said to be seeking security guarantees from the US in the form of a regional defense plan, bolstering missile defenses and intelligence sharing to protect against Iranian threats in the region. This is Jodie Cohen for WION, World is One.
So as you can see from that clip, there are many microaggressions and micro conflicts going on right now between Iran and the 1948ers, whether they're actually happening or some of them are false flag made up events. But regardless, as I said back in Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 20, the least of the flock shall draw them out. Something major is going to happen that's going to cause Israel and Iran to go to war. And again, it's going to draw in the United States of America and these other European NATO nations in on the side of the 1948ers, and on the side of Iran, it's going to draw in major nations like Russia and China. Let's get back into these precepts. This is Joel chapter 2, verse 20. But I will remove far off from you the Northern Army, the North American Army, the United States military, all branches, the Army, the Air Force, the Marines, the Navy, the National Guard, etc., etc., and will drive him into a land barren and desolate, that Middle Eastern region, more specifically Saudi Arabia, which is going to be the main staging ground for this third woe, the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, World War III, the War of Armageddon, with his face toward the East Sea. And when we go to a map of the Middle East, we have Saudi Arabia right here, and what's to the east? To the northeast, you've got Iraq, you've got the Tigris and the Euphrates River, and as we just saw from that clip, there were recent Iranian missile strikes in Iraq against perceived 1948er targets that Iran was suspicious of. And then directly to the east, you've got the Persian Gulf, and what's above the Persian Gulf? Iran, the main target of not only the United States of America, but the 1948ers in that Middle Eastern region. And his hinder part, or behind him, toward the utmost sea, the Red Sea. And what else do you have? The state of Israel right here, where the 1948ers dwell. So as we can clearly see, this area right here is a major part of prophecy, the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, that War of Armageddon. And no matter what you hear in the news of Biden wanting to take troops out of Iraq or the Middle East in general, situations will always happen to keep the United States military in that Middle Eastern region, because it's prophecy for them to be there, to be drawn out on the side of the 1948ers to go against Iran and her allies during World War III, the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. And his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up, because he hath done great things. And to you United States military personnel, and really all you heathen military personnel that are going to find yourself in the Middle East during the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, you better come to terms with that being your final resting place. The battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat in that Middle Eastern region is going to be a great slaughter for you heathen nations. And it's all through the will of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai to gather all you heathens down there to punish you for afflicting the apple of his eye, the true children of Israel, who are known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today. And at the top of that list are you Edomites, as pursuant to Psalms chapter 83. But now I'm going to close it out in Joel chapter 3. I'm going to start at verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, the heathen Gentiles, you Edomites, the so-called white people, you Moabites, who are the so-called Chinese, the Ishmaelites, who are the so-called Arabs, the Elamites, who are the so-called East Indians, etc., etc. Prepare war with Iran, nuclear war, and because this third woe will go nuclear, the battle in the valley of Jehoshaphat, the war of Armageddon. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen. The United States of America, the state of the 1948ers, Iran, Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Iraq, these other European nations, Britain, France, Germany, etc., etc., and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh, and those mighty ones are the death angels of the Most High, holding back this great destruction, waiting to get the go-ahead to release it, which is mainly going to happen after that charagma, the MOTB, is mandatorily implemented. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, which in the Hebrew is Yahweh's Shaphat, or Yahweh's judgment. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about, for like I just said, afflicting the apple of his eye, the children of Israel. Real quick, let's go to the first couple of verses in this chapter, Joel 3 verse 1, and what does the header read? The nations will be judged. For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah, the southern kingdom, or the so-called Negroes, your so-called African Americans, Haitians, Jamaicans, West Indians, etc., etc., and Jerusalem, the northern kingdom, the so-called Latinos and Native Americans, the elect from all 12 tribes waking up and coming back to their power, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, which we're seeing happening right now. Hence why you're seeing all these end times prophecies begin to come to their fulfillment. We're living in the last seconds of the last days of the rulership of the heathen nations before the ushering in of the kingdom of heaven. I will also gather all nations, the heathen nations, and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, Israel. And when we go into that word plead in the Strongs, it's H8199.
Strong's H8199. Shaphat.
Shaphat. To judge, govern, vindicate, punish, vindication, condemning, and punishing. So the Most High, to execute judgment. So you heathen nations are being gathered down into the valley of Jehoshaphat to be judged and punished for afflicting the children of Israel. The Most High is not coming to you heathens to plead with you nicely with a bouquet of roses. And at the top of that list are again you Edomites, who have done the most to the children of Israel, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations. You Edomites brought the southern kingdom from the west coast of Africa to the Americas to serve in slavery. And when you came to the Americas and colonized it, you took some of the northern kingdom and scattered them to places like Europe. Israel has been scattered from one end of the earth into the other, mainly by you Edomites in the transatlantic slave trade, the triangle trade, and parted my land. And we can clearly see that the land of Israel is parted today between those 1948ers and those so-called Palestinians, those so-called Arabs who are really the Ishmaelites. Neither of you squatters belong in that land. That's why there's constantly war and violence and bloodshed going on in the Holy Land right now. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. Hey, selling our people into slavery. And there are accounts of the boys of the children of Israel being sold as sex slaves, and girls and Israelite girls sold for wine or guns or any other items and trinkets out here. You heathens, chiefly you Edomites, got a hell of a lot to pay for. And also besides this, the children of Israel are still being afflicted to this very day. You put poisonous food and water into our neighborhoods for our people to eat and drink. Just look at that situation that happened up in Flint, Michigan. You give our people black culture, hip hop culture, and thug culture to destroy their minds. You call us black, Mexican, Native American, Cherokee, Choctaw, nigger, spick, Tonto, etc., etc. Everything but who we truly are, the children of Israel. You put Planned Parenthoods into our neighborhoods to advocate for our women to get abortions. You allow guns and other deadly items to get into these hoods so that these jakes can find it and go to war with each other in. You pump drugs into our neighborhoods. Again, you Edomites have built up a tab that you won't be able to cash. But back down in I'll reread verse 12. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Yahweh's Shaphat, or Yahweh's judgment, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision. And if you've got that spiritual eye salve, you can clearly see that the day of Yahweh is very near in the valley of decision. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong, as we can clearly see we're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. Oh, and one more thing. A lot of those slave ships that brought the southern kingdom from the west coast of Africa to the Americas were owned by 1948ers. Just think about that. So again, with that, I hope this video was edifying. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.